And it's nice to come to a security conference and not really have to, get my spook on. Okay, so except with a couple people, you know who you are. But I like the content. Hello?
And it crapped out.
You don't like the mics.
Hello? That's all right, I'll just speak up. So I like the content too, and this is a great location. So I drove up from Gainesville, Florida. I work for the... nice drive too, it's like 8 hours or something. I drove up from the University of Florida. I work in the Health Science Center there as a network security analyst. So it's a teaching hospital, so you can imagine it's a pretty stringent environment, but it's scary. Down the road, I think after I leave the health side of security, I'll do a presentation on that. So I really want to make a point here, and it's great to see some ladies here. The women add so much to this business, and we need more women in security. So you guys got to recruit these women and get them in here, because we're missing out on entire perspectives and aspects of security because of this gender issue. Moving on. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about electronic door access controllers. I'll call them EDACs, and just going to go high level. Who are these vendors? What's going on in this area as far as who the major players are? I'm going to touch on the architecture, mostly on a specific vendor that I've been working on. Anybody here from S2 Security by chance? Any legal representation from S2 Security? Okay. Good. I am going to release a vulnerability today, so it's something to stick around for. It'll be actually a couple will be interesting. And but the point I want to make is this is kind of a precursor to I'm presenting at Hack in the Box in Dubai next month, and so I'm going to release the full paper then. So there'll be a lot more details coming up. I'm also giving the vendors some more time. I've been working closely with CERT. Mad props to CERT. So I couldn't move forward a lot with these guys. So I'm going to talk about some ways to research this and what the vulnerabilities are and the attacks. And now the takeaway from this will be that you can apply this to a lot of embedded devices, because embedded devices are tricky to test. It's not like you can do a whole lot of CPU monitoring or memory monitoring on them. It's hard to get information off of them sometimes. So there's going to be aspects of this that I'll highlight that are transferable to a lot of different types of security analysis. So learning outcomes for today. I'm sorry if this comes across as a little pedantic at first. Just like to really put it on the table. And so you're going to get an increased awareness, trends like we talked about. You're going to be able to walk out of here today with specific pen testing knowledge on these systems, be it in your own company or if you're doing legitimate pen testing out there. I really want to stress enough that I can't stress enough that please don't use this in a bad way. Don't go out there and hose these systems up, because it's building access, a lot of safety issues involved. It can get very ugly very quickly. I'm dying to heat up here, so is anybody else warm? Okay, that's all right. It's good. Turn the heat up. People like it. Got to get ready for Dubai anyway. Just glad I'm not going over there wearing body armor. Okay. So, getting back to this company that I've been focusing on, S2 Security, and this is one of the beauties of being on a college campus, having access to like LexisNexis, Academic Universe, and ABI Inform, which are huge databases. That means I can go back to 2004 and pull an article that the CEO wrote. You're not going to get that on Google. Okay, you're not going to get that off the company website. So that's a really important thing when you're doing your research, is to go. You can step onto a college campus and use those resources for free. You don't need to be a student. You just need to get on campus. This quotation from Attorney General Reno, you all probably remember it, way back in 2000. What happened was they did a penetration test on several government buildings, CIA, FBI, DOJ, and they some people actually from the Government Accountability Office got into the building and got right up to the door. And after, you know, all the press releases and everything kind of settled down, but they had a meeting, and this is what she said, and people have quoted this a lot, but I think this pertains especially to this class of device in these buildings, because that's what this is. This is building security, and everybody knows, okay, when an attacker gets physical access, it's game over, always. So what you have is a lot of these systems are proprietary, and they use proprietary protocols, and they use dedicated lines. They won't go over the IP of network, and they'll have, you know, dedicated wires and things. But there's a movement now towards this convergence, and that's almost a Cisco-y term. But I'll borrow it for this because it works. And what they're doing is they're pulling this video into it. They're adding other building systems into these devices, these brains of these of your building, and you know, elevator control, alarms, HVAC. I think somebody might have gotten into this one here. And one of the really cool things is they're using power over Ethernet to charge up a capacitor in the door lock, which will actually strike the bolt when you come up and use your card to authenticate to the door. So, and the capacitor charges up in a matter of like 300 milliseconds for some of these companies. But now you look at that from a cost perspective of not having to run power to each one of these devices, to the actual card readers and the doors. But then you look at the attack surface that comes up with that, you know, and now instead of an outlet in the wall, right, which is true power, and you trust it, and it's always reliable mostly, it's now going to your Cisco switch or whatever switch that's providing the power over Ethernet. So now your switch is now your power station. These are the kinds of things that people don't really talk about when they talk about this expanding capabilities. You see a lot of these using embedded Linux, various distributions. I'll get more specific on that. And then huge number of vendors in this space. So Cisco Systems just did a purchase back in November of Richard Zeta. And hopefully that'll be the next system I can get my evil little hands on. I'm going to work my security engineer at University of Florida, or contact their, sales engineer, and see if I can get something from them. S2 Security, my previous job was a marketing company down in St. Pete, Florida, and we were looking at different building security systems. I got a hold of this because the vendor reseller came in, and I said, well, you know, I got to take a look at this box and see how it integrates into our network and stuff. And so I only had the box for about a week, but I've been able to find some online demo access, which I've been able to do some follow-up testing on. So if you guys go out there and find these demos, don't hose them up because I'm still doing some verification. So this is what you'll see, right? You know, I work at a university, and this is our typical facilities guy. And that's what they are. These devices are managed, you know, by like a secretary in HR or building facilities people. Everybody here mostly is in IT. Has anybody here ever configured one of these door access control systems? That's great. That's great. And from a security perspective, if they pulled you in when you were deploying this, that's even better. But most of the time, it's one of these things that, you know, it's our domain. It's not yours. The facilities guys, the physical security is separated from the IT security. And the problem is you have this convergence, this IP convergence coming together, and they're slapping this stuff on your network. So you need to be aware of what's going on. They sell these devices as embedded, standalone, stick them in a closet, 10-year cycle before you rotate them out. Policies, your corporate policies and your information security policies probably don't even apply to these. They're just one of those kinds of things that, you know, even though you use it every day, you badge in the lab, you badge in the building, it's just one of those things like, oh, well, you know, those guys must really have it down, right? I mean, you just assume that they're, you know, they have it together. Company name is S2 Security, and they got security in the company name, and they really got it together, right? And what you'll see is a lot of a trickle down. So a manufacturer will make this, and then it goes to a reseller, and then a local guy will do the actual installation and configuration. So there's a lot of different parties involved in this, and I'm going to point out later on that what I view as a cascading failure of responsibility. And last but not least, I mean, you may not even have your people in your building, your employees, handling this. So it might very well be outsourced. You have somebody in Karachi handling this for you. So a picture is always great. And I want to point out what this actually looks like. So this is the box. This is the brain. And what you got here is this guy here is your network controller. And that's got a web server in there. It's got a database. It's got some other connectivity to perform backups and administration. And then it will connect into these application modules here, which will then go out to like micro nodes, which will be even a smaller embedded system that doesn't have all the database and doesn't have all the connectivity to it, but it has a specific purpose, which is just to run that card reader that you have to the door. So a card reader to a controller, to a node, and then it will pop back into the network controller. So here's a good example, and this is from S2 Security. And so at the top center there is the network controller, which you just saw in the previous slide. And then you see it goes right into the corporate LAN. And then you'll have one of those expansion nodes, which is down a second tier there. And that's what actually would run out to the door. And so you see, in this architecture that they throw out, it's not about having it isolated. It's about having, or even on separate VLANs, it's about having this thing just slap it on your network, connect it to your IP cameras, and you can manage it from everywhere. So this is the NetBox. And there's about 7,000 of these systems installed worldwide. Schools are probably their biggest vertical, the education market. They're really getting these into a lot of like high schools and also some colleges. And also in like hospitals, there's even case studies on their website about hospitals. Didn't find a case study about any law enforcement agency facilities on there, but that's where it goes back to the LexisNexis search, and digging up articles. But there's a couple police stations that have this installed too. And I mentioned this a little while ago, and that's that the same box is sold under multiple brand names. So S2 Security is the company in Massachusetts. They build this thing. Lanier purchased the distribution rights from S2 Security, so they rebrand it, and then they handle all the reselling out to yet another tier that goes down. And then the resellers may rebrand it again. And so this is actually, if you go to Sonatrol and look at their e-access solution, this is the same box that S2 makes. But it's not readily apparent because you got to follow through that distribution chain. And what's interesting about this, there's lots of interesting things about this, but from a vulnerability perspective and keeping your software up to date, there's a lot of different places that a customer needs to go to find out what's going on. You've got information flow that needs to happen all the way from S2 Security through Lanier all the way to the end users. And do you really trust some small, not to disparage anybody, but a small local yokel kind of security company, physical security company? Guys don't know IP, and they're the ones that you need to depend upon to figure out if this thing has any vulnerabilities or needs to get upgraded or patched. So this happens a lot in IT. There's boxes and they get rebranded and all that, but when it comes to critical devices on a network like this, I think that it just needs to be much more clear for the end users. So, again, reading up on this, it's always important to do your background reading. I mean, it's great to jump on a network and get your box in the lab and, fire all the tools out, get the scans going, get your fingerprinting going, figure out what the defaults are, passwords and stuff, but it's always good to go kick back and do some reading. And this tiny URL link there is an S2 and MySQL case study that MySQL wrote. And from that, all of this great attacker information was derived. They told me they use the Samba client. They told me they use MySQL, MyISM. I got the Linux distribution off of that. It's the same Linux distribution that's used in Zorus. Everybody knows those little Zorus, handhelds. Cool, right? Great. Processor, and this really struck me, was they only took 15 months from the design to their first customer ship. So, fast, cheap, quality, pick two, right? That's the old line. And then this, they didn't have much prior experience with open source. So here they are with a whole new Linux operating system that they're using embedded. They're using different components, SQL, HTTP. They got to wrap this all up together, and they did it only in 15 months. Wow. Now this last point was such a gimme because your file storage and where sensitive information is stored is critical, right, in your system. I mean, if you can get it encrypted or if you have specific user permissions on who can access it. This right here told me that everything they have in there is stored in that MySQL database. So you get the database, you get the box. Yes, sir?
Is that web interface written, what is it PHP or?
No, they're just using a web browser, and they've got lots of JavaScript. Web server with JavaScript. Yeah. Right. So the question was, are they using a web server with PHP? And no, it's much simpler than that. I'll get into some more details on that too. How many do you want to time?
About 40 more minutes.
Okay. Yes, you just give me. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So I love reading security vendor marketing. It's so enjoyable. I mean, the lies and hubris that come out blow my mind every time. But it's great because I use their marketing statements against them. They come out and they say that you can put this thing on the public internet. Well, when I'm writing like an advisory and sending that to CERT, okay, who then passes it along to them, they come back and they say, oh, it's always deep within the corporate network, and you have to have a VP, you should use a VPN, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's not what you guys are writing. Well, I come back with an email, it's like kind of wink wink nudge nudge, like, hey, it's marketing speak. Well, I don't buy that, pal. So, you want to write that and put that out there, that you can put this thing on the public internet. Well, I'm going to show you later on where these are on the public internet. This bottom one is really scary too. Right? I mean, is there any piece of software out there that you can really expect to be maintenance free for years? No way.
Sure, Linux.
Bullshit!
That's a different time slot.
Bike racks, 3 o'clock, no friends. So, thank you for this gentleman bringing this up, because I'm going to get into some of these components here, and we'll see. So, anybody ever hear this go-ahead web server?
Oh, yeah.
Man, it's all over the place. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's in modems, cable modems, it's everywhere.
I saw it a lot in industrial Ethernet switches.
Great, like SCADA stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I call them out on this and say it is a very poor choice for a web server. I'd be running out here with Apache, of course, but then there's more development stuff. There's 16 vulnerabilities out there going back to like 2000 in this web server, and I didn't see a single vendor response to any of these. Now it's really interesting because I see that they now made this software, this web server is now open source. But I don't see a development community out there that's backing it. You know, I'm not seeing, you know, anybody with tracks set up, you know, with CVS, okay, or SVN, right, doing code management. There's nothing. There's forums. There's a few posts. There's really nothing out there as far as a open source community that took this off the company's hands and is taking ownership of it. So what I think happened is that these vulnerabilities started rolling in, and this company was like, you know, we don't have the staff, we don't have the people, we're just going to take this thing and make it open source. But they still sell it. And they don't fix it, but it's open source. So they pass the you know, it's cost shifting, it's risk shifting, it's responsibility shifting. And this is a perfect example of this bottom one here. You know, it's contacted them on 3 different occasions during the last 3 months, and they didn't give us a meaningful response. You know, if you go through the bugs on each one of these, you'll see pretty much that same kind of response.
So their opinion is we open sourced it, we don't have to deal with security despite the fact that we will happily sell it to people?
Oh, they're not going to give you that answer.
That's
you get no
what it
answer.
amounts to.
That's what I see.
So all it takes is, you know, somebody to exploit one of these vulnerabilities, the company that, you know, got owned, right, somebody walked right through the front door or whatever, can go ahead and sue whoever makes go-ahead web server
Well,
addressing these vulnerabilities.
I don't know.
Open
I mean,
source,
you know,
my point is open source doesn't instantly mean we don't have to do shit.
right.
That's a joke.
Right. I
We're
mean,
still
it does not
responsible.
absolve them of, you know, in a moral sense, it doesn't absolve them.
So
But in a legal sense, you know, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I look at some of these end user license agreements, and this thing can, you know, kill my cat and put my grandma on a death panel and do everything. And bad to me. And they're absolve themselves of any liability.
right. So I guess it really depends upon how they're selling it.
Not necessarily. If you leverage open source software in a product that you're selling and standing behind, you basically have no excuse. You can't claim, oh, we don't know what the code is. Oh, we just licensed it from this other company. You can't redirect the blame. It's your bag. You even have the ability to go in and fix the problems. So, I mean, there's a lot of liability involved.
Well, there's a lot of lawyers out there that can just turn everything you just said to 180 degrees and suddenly make the fault of you for not
I don't want, I didn't mean to start this
Words are
debate.
very slippery.
No, and
So I guess it depends on who you're going to sue
So,
for, whether they've got better.
I didn't mean to start the debate. Can we just agree that there's 2 sides to it and they both suck equally?
and you suffer as the end
Yeah.
user because
Whoever buys this is left with their wang flapping in the wind.
I tell you, you know, and this legal stuff comes up time and time again, and you know, if you have any inkling of going to law school, I mean, I say doing, you know, 5-10 years of security work and then going to law school is great. Okay, because you can come out of there and you know, really have a handle and be able to speak geek and speak suit and speak legal, and when you can tie those 3 together, you can be a force. Or you probably just sell out to the man and, you know, go work for an insurance company. This quotation on the bottom, that came from that 2004 paper that he wrote. And, you know, this is, I don't want to harp on this guy, but again, you know, you put this information out there, you put these statements out there, you know, well, you know, it's a challenge and not everyone's rising up to it, meaning the assumption is that we are, right? He doesn't say that, but that's what you get out of that. So here's SQL. I couldn't believe when I got a hold of this, because when I popped this box and got the database, I looked at the version and it was 4.0, and I was like, man, I'm no database guy, but 4.0 sounds old. So I went to mysql.com to download it. This is what I see on the bottom here. Because 4.0 are in such low demand, we've decided to stop hosting binaries. You can't even, I mean, you know, end of life, end of download. You know, you can't even get this thing from MySQL, it's that old. Now, a caveat here, that's with the NetBox version 2.0s. But the 3.0s use Postgres. Haven't really dug into that, but obviously, there's a host of vulnerabilities that are associated with databases, and in particular, providing any kind of network access. So the reason that they provide this network access on 3306 there, and I should put STCP obviously, is for reports generation. So there's third-party products like Crystal that can tie into this system and interface with the ODBC directly, extract information, and then create reports. So, for example, you have a door that goes out to the smoking area. Well, I want reports of everyone who uses that smoking area door, and then that goes to HR, and we can adjust their health insurance payments. That's just a creepy way that this could be used, but it's something to keep in mind. Because the importance of this logging and access on these systems is huge. Recall last year up in at Yale, there was a young lady who was killed by a lab technician. She was a student there. Police came in, state police, they were investigating it. This guy was in the lab, and while they were doing their investigating, and he was covering up pieces of the crime scene that he had done. So he dropped the pen. He had brought in a fish hook and a line and was trying to retrieve this pen from the hole in the wall, and he stuck this poor woman's body in after he killed her. Now, a huge part of them being able to track this was they were looking at the badge access, and they got him and her in the same room, and then she didn't come out, with her badge. And that's how they pinpoint this guy. So the importance of logging and access and obviously the security of these devices can't be underestimated, because here you are, you got the state police in Connecticut, you got the local police, probably the FBI in there too, and they're still, they didn't isolate. I'm not going to get into their crime scene procedures, but unless they had this information come to them, meaning the logs, the door access, and that this guy and this young lady were in the same room together and she didn't come out, he might have been able to cover up that crime scene more, and maybe even gotten away with it. And if he'd known this stuff and they used the system, he might have just wiped that box. There's real life implications to this. This is very interesting here. So that a lot of companies, they need to write their own custom applications. This is the communication protocol that is used to do auto discovery of the nodes. So the nodes again are out in the network over IP, and then those connect directly into the doors. So this uses multicast. There's a service listing on 7362 there, and obviously it was coded by these guys. And they just got their patent for it too. This gets back to doing your research, right? It's not just looking at the packets. It's not just looking at what's running in this box. What's this company doing? Are they patenting this stuff? You go look at that patent, you can get a lot of information on how this is, architected to work. So I mean, that's almost, it's almost an RFC, right? At that point, for how these guys operate this node auto discovery. And from there, you look at I put gentlemen start your fuzzers. That's just directly attacking the box, easy stuff. But you start talking about spoofing, door node controllers, what kind of authentication, how they really know what that device is. What about flooding? You got 20 doors, right? Well, what if you have 3,000 broadcasts on that network? Will that system just croak? So there's, what this does is it's great. They're going to they patented it, and they're going to try to sell this, to other companies, of course, or just use it to protect their intellectual property. But it increases your attack surface, whenever you do this. Any questions on this so far? Oh, thanks. So, looking at FTP and Telnet. FTP and Telnet on a box like this has no place, right? Here's this guy's quotation. This is a CEO. We see some vendors fitting their serial devices with Telnet adapters, which simply sit on the network transmitting unsecured serial data. Some vendors, not implying that no, we would never do that, right? Well, that's exactly what they do. Okay, so there's telnet into the single managers, no SSH, right? Not even V1 that you could monkey in the middle with Doug Song's tools. And they use FTP for these database backups. So, and you don't even need to put a password in, by the way, on the FTP server. And it has to be in a root directory, too. That's what it is. This is directly, this network administrator's pass, that's right from their documentation. Right? Password's optional. I mean, if you're recommending, the end, you got to remember, right? This goes through, a couple resellers, then it goes to an end guy. They do some training up there. They've run about 1,200 people through their training, and they came back. I haven't had direct communication with them. It's all been through CERT and then me, and then back through CERT and to them. Because what happened was, I contacted them. I knew who made the box. I contacted S2 Security directly. I said, "Can I get a security point of contact?" I did a read receipt on the email I sent. I see him popping up 5, 6, 7 read receipts, okay, on this. And then finally, one guy, after another email, one of them got back to me and said, "Oh yeah, give this guy at Lanier in California a call because they handle all the S2 stuff." Like, I'm contacting, you guys make this box, and now you're making me go out to another guy. So I don't want to call people, I want to have a record here, right? I want to have this documented. So I got the guy's email out in California. I emailed him and then I CC'd CERT. And at that point, it was, they don't talk to me. But they're plenty happy to threaten legal action. I'm like, for what? I mean, I got a hold of your box. I reported it to CERT, reported it to you. We're well past 30 days on the majority of these vulnerabilities. I've done everything white hat as possible. And you guys are going to lawyer up on me? I mean, I got nothing. Unless you're coming at me with criminal charges, I'll take this in front of a jury. Okay, any day. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but any lawyers in here, give me your card. Some pro bono work out of this. Resume builder stuff.
Don't sue me, bro.
Yeah. Or actually, at the University of Florida now, it's don't shoot me in the face with your M4, bro. Y'all didn't hear about a graduate student with some psychological problems from Ghana, PhD, thought he was, thought he wasn't getting his visa renewed, thought that people were after him. There was some intervention before, and then the police got called because he was screaming in his house. I scream in my house all the time. I don't know why it's illegal. They kicked in the door, 5 cops, and then they, tased him, beanbagged him. Still couldn't get this guy. And by the way, he had polio. Okay, and he's using a cane. So, yeah, shot him in the jaw. Anyway, don't take that as a thing against any law enforcement because I really have nothing but the utmost respect for law enforcement. But again, if the guy's got polio and he's freaking out, there's got to be better ways. Okay, I digress. Coffee's hit it. So this is kind of cool, right? I mean, with this box, this is a screenshot of the web interface. You can look at the floor plans of the building if they upload them, right? I mean, it's just a JPEG image. It's not, clickable and all that. But from an attack perspective, you can get the layout of the building. And this is right out of 24, this kind of stuff, right? I'm going to send it to your screen and all that. Shit, if stuff only worked that way, You're like, oh, wait a minute, I got to reboot my phone. So right now, this is the only vulnerability that's publicly known out there. And this came in January 4th. It was the first VU of the year. An unauthorized URL, okay, allows a factory reset of this controller. I mean, not like wipe it, not like, I'm talking like brick it, like it just came out of the box, and you just cut the packing tape and open it up, pull it out. That's where this puts this. So all your backups are gone, unless you've been sending them over, FTP to the backup server. Yes, sir.
Do the Ethernet locks fail open or close?
That's a great question, okay? Because they came back to me on this, to CERT, and they said, And if you read the advisory, they say everything continues to work as normal, meaning that the nodes, okay, at this point, which connect to the doors, the nodes, even though this communication is cut back to the brain, they still continue to function. I don't buy that. Now, I haven't been able to verify that and test that, but I'll tell you what you do lose. You lose all your logging, okay, so you don't know who's using those doors. And you lose the ability to do any obvious web control of the door, so you can't pop open a door remotely. You can't schedule it to be open at a certain time.
Because fire regulations, as I understand, require electronic locks to fail open. So if you go to a data closet and you power off your switch, which is providing power over Ethernet, don't all your doors unlock?
Yeah.
Depends on the location. You could have a research facility that's got a biohazard. I can't fail sort of.
Just don't let the boogaloo flu out.
Like a typical federal facility, then yes, it's actually safety trumps security. So, but yeah, you are correct. That's assuming that they're powered over Ethernet. That it is possible power to be made. You just don't have anything.
Yeah. But you know, you get into a situation like a man trap.
Yeah. I have one at the customer to go to work. My boss's idea.
I would expect that they do fail open, or if they lose their power, that that power capacitor will sense that it can't recharge again, and at that point will trigger and keep that lock open. I mean, this is where, getting back to the legal stuff, the liability will really kick in. Okay, if you have a fire or people can't get out of a building, or for whatever reason, that's something that is tangible and people can sink their teeth into. You start talking about open source and code, their eyes glass over and they don't get it. But little Jimmy, this is like the petticoat waste, the petticoat fire back in the 1880s, which revamped all of New York City building codes. I mean, there was a shirtwaist fire, and they locked these workers in the room so they wouldn't leave, right? Take bathroom breaks and eat and things like that. And there was a huge fire, and 50 women who were sewing burned in this building, and it changed all the fire codes. I talked a little bit about the the vendor communications. We weren't that great, and I got to get back and forth. But CERT, I can't say enough about those guys. They really did a great job with this, especially like Will Dorman, Art Mannion, a couple solid characters. So, but again, I haven't been able to verify all this because I only had the box on my desk in my cube for under a week. I didn't have the nodes set up. I didn't have all that. I was just mainly interested in the web interface and what other security concerns I would have about this management piece. So I'd love to, man. I mean, let me tell you, all those vendors that I mentioned before, if somebody were to back me on this and provide me access to that, I'd do it. For nothing. I mean, keep me busy for the next year, going over those 10, 12 systems that I listed out there before. And I'll do it for Taco Bell. And what I'd really love to do is, if a vendor came to me and said, we want you to do a security evaluation of this, I'll say, great. I'll do it for the equivalent of your coffee budget, and you donate that coffee budget, the equivalent of that coffee budget, to start a hackerspace. I don't make a dime. Okay, hackerspace gets funded. You take a write-off of firing for helping a nonprofit, for funding a nonprofit. You get a tax break on that, and you get a better product out of that. I don't know. I love it. The one thing I really don't want to do is give any implication here that I'm trying to ransom or give somebody the hard sell. Nothing like that at all. Yeah, this is fresh. You guys are the first on this. And this really is what makes this nasty, as far as what you can get. So I'm going to have to contact CERT and ask them to release this video. Basically, URL attack again. Through the web interface, unauthenticated, you can download the database backwards. So recall what I said before, right? This is SQL. Everything is packaged up in this database. Well, you get that database, you got everything.
Is it at least like hashed like the data, or is it just like plain clear?
Oh, it's all clear text.
So
like-
really clever to encrypt the data? After everything else.
To their credit, the marketing guy who was going back into CERT was like, oh, well, there's nothing in those databases, you know, and we, anyway, okay. Yeah, I don't want to waste your time.
Just a quick clarification: are the users or the I don't know some kind of credentials in the database?
The users?
Yeah, like
The badges.
the badge IDs, numbers on.
Yeah, oh yeah, they got like the Wiegand, numbers on there.
Yeah.
They've got I mean, all the identifying factors of that individual badge for that employee. And plus, you got their names, you can go back, like a previous speaker said, the Facebook stuff.
So how do they expect it to work normally if it's factory reset?
That's what they said, man. And I was like, am I going to really debate these guys?
Is that something in the database to authenticate, or is it something in the box that is able to authenticate the badge without having to do anything else?
Well, according to them, is that the brain's gone, right? You got your nodes hooked up to the doors. That means that this would have to push out those policies and that capability to each one of those nodes.
But I've seen systems that do that. I have.
Okay.
Those are usually like old legacy systems that were developed over many decades. They use modem for communication. They're only now through on the internet or Ethernet. But I've also seen ones that don't do that. And the one thing I can think of is that that maybe that they still function because the sensors default into a hey, there's an RFID tag there. Okay.
That's
like
right.
those ATM door locks that
That's
work
right.
with any mag strike.
So, for me, the question is whether those nodes have the capability, right? Memory, storage, CPU, all that, to pull this information down from the master and be able to function standalone. And I say, even if that happens, even if they are able to function, when somebody badges into that door, does that record when that brain comes back up and you restore it from your backup? Are those logs then pushed in? Or do you have a blackout window where you have no idea of who's coming in and out of your building where?
Or is it pushed down in clear text and you can intercept and manufacture your own?
Yeah, that's a given. I mean, just assume clear text with everything. They threw some, we use SHA-1 and so you're hashing something?
Probably
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you get this database, it's game over. And it's interesting because you get your full, like right in here, this is the path. So when you get this in the DAR format, you uncompress it, and it gives you a path, which is VARDB, blah, 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 and it goes all the way down. That's the beauty right there, just a flat, plain text file of everything. And it was funny because when I first did this, I did on my Linux box, and then I had var in there, and I was like, wait a minute, and I switched, paths, and went into my real var on my box, and I was like looking around, what is all this? So it was kind of a, kick myself in the ass moment. So this is what these are. These are screenshots over PuTTY and looking at that all.db database. And I'm able to pull, there's the admin user. On the left, this is version 2 of the NetBox, and on the right, this is the version 3. And you can see that uber secure hash. I just use passcracking.com or .ru, and this is when I was going back and forth with them, with the S2 people, because they're like, oh, well, the admin password in there is encrypted, and I was like, thanks for telling me that it's in there. And you couldn't really manipulate this information. I'm like, man, you want to do something creepy? Pull that database and then figure out a way to get it into like Maltego, right? Because you got all the users in there. You can reach out and start spidering and pull information from different social sites. You can really get an idea of who's who. Because once you have this personal information in these systems and somebody can get to it, it turns from being just an IP out there on the internet and a web server to like, now I drill down, now I get access, now I find out who these people are in the system, go back out to the social sites, figure out, oh, well, these guys are in Louisiana. Oh, this is the company they work for. Because sometimes it's not in a net block space and you can't do, your DNS stuff. It's just a box that's out there.
So are you saying that they recommend putting these systems right out on the internet? Is that
Well,
what you mean?
their marketing
Okay.
says that, yeah, you can stick this, Baghdad Airport Road. Good to go. Now, to their credit, the guy, once I showed him this and this and, some other things, oh, well, we'll go back and, review our training and tell these guys, not to put these out on the internet directly. Like, great, but what about the couple hundred customers that I'm going to show you in a few minutes who are out there right now?
Or even if it is internally, if it's still on your internal network, it's not on an isolated network, physically isolated network, right? All it takes is somebody to get a foothold on that network via some random browser exploit or Adobe exploit, whatever the case may be. And right now they can just get access to all of your doors.
Yeah. And really, this business is about,
Internet or not, doesn't matter.
you can have your layers and you can have, your firewalls, and we've got IDS and IPS, but it comes down to it, the front line is everywhere, man. I mean, it really is. And, people talk about firewalls, and I'm like, man, you're just punching a hole through it, right? I mean, you're just allowing all that traffic to go through it. What's it doing? Oh, well, it does fix-up inspection. Whatever. It's more crap. No questions? Am I keeping you guys awake?
Yeah.
10? Perfect. Here's the pawnage. Yes, sir.
Can you just buy these? I'm just obsessed now with these Power of Ethernet door. Can you buy them one at a time?
I've seen some vendors out there. Again, it's at it gets in like that third-party market. One was like a Yahoo page where you could buy this system for $1,500 for the controller, and then I think you could get the nodes too.
Do you know roughly how much the door locks for battery this one?
No.
I'm sure they're on eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're real standardized too. That's the thing. So you get one, you're going to have a real good idea. But then there'll be those idiosyncrasies, right? It'll be like Deviant's talk yesterday about the handcuff keys. There's always going to be those little one-offs on whatever vendor that you're using. But I'd love to type those.
I apologize if I'm skipping ahead.
Not at all.
Have you done any research into the communication between this product and those endpoints?
No, I just haven't had the access.
Okay.
The only thing I've really had the access to was the eMerge netbox. I'm sorry, the netbox itself for about a week, and I've been using their online demos. The version 2, version 3, yeah, just really subversive, like using their own stuff against them. It's a little dirty, but I'm out here. I got nothing. I'm going to do what I can. This is really, so extracting, so at this point, you pulled the database, unauthenticated URL, you've got the admin hash, you crack the hash, now you have access to the web interface, which will allow you to do any number of really bad things. And this is Sonatrol. So again, this rebranding that happens, right? This is Sonatrol's rebranding that they do. So it's a netbox, but it's sold by Sonatrol. And Sonatrol sells this as a SaaS too. And you look, here's your unlocks, right? You can unlock any of these facility doors that just click, boom, it unlocks. Or you can set it. On that bottom left there's another screenshot I snuck in. And that's the smoker area, which is always going to be that back door, that side door. And you can set it for dark 100 to come back up and back the truck up. And then go in there. But if you back that truck up, they got the cameras going, you're going to get busted, right? Well, maybe not. Okay? And this is great. This quotation on the bottom here is from Bosch. And Bosch is another major vendor of this. Most hackers don't care about watching your lobby. I don't know what you're talking about, man. I love watching your lobby.
For your security.
Yeah. And if they gain access to network, they're going to have their financial data and trade secrets, sure. But I'm going to watch your lobby, and then I'm going to shut the cameras off, and I'm going to open the doors, and I'm going to go in and grab the box, okay, that has your trade secrets and your financial data. So again, these marketing guys, they're easy to pick on and all that, You know, you sell your soul to the devil, man. There's people out here who are going to call you on this crap. DVRs. So these are digital video recorders, right? There's several vendors that are integrated with S2 Netbox, and S2 provides the guides to do that. So here is an example snip from one of the guides to set up a Panasonic, and this is it right here. So here's the default username, IEI emerge. Here's the default password. We recommend that you use these defaults. You know? So if you got a guy who's an implementer out there and he's going through his little checklist, vendor recommends it. Fingerprinting, Mac OID is registered to S2 security. Dude, so easy to find, right? You scan, you get the OID, you know you're looking for those octets. I scanned this box, submitted a fingerprint to Fyodor for MMAP. Okay, so you do MMAP application or OS fingerprinting, it's going to get this box. I always like to contribute back. Shodan. Who here uses Shodan? Okay. Everybody's heard of Shodan. If you haven't, that's fine. Shodan is basically a, think of it as like rainbow tables for IPs out there on the internet. So this guy is scanning all these IPs, port 80, 443, 21, and 23. That's what he says he's doing, but I'm sure he's doing more. So this is, going back, S2 security is like, oh, well, it's behind a firewall, only accessible over VPN is the only way, in the corporate network. I said, you know what? These boxes are easy to find. I'm going to show you how easy. So you can do that search there. And what this is that's the web server, right? Fingerprint. Go ahead webs, log in ASP, that's unique to them, cache, and then must revalidate. So here's the Shodan results for that. Go ahead web search. 146 systems out there, guaranteed, man. These are all emerge boxes. S2 net boxes, same thing.
Guarantee it.
Well, I can't. There's no guarantees.
Yeah.
Anybody get those lawyer cards yet? I really need that. Here's and I'm going to step away for a second, and I only got a couple of slides. I'm going to wrap this up, but here's some other EDACs out there. One of these is this iGuard biometric fingerprint reader. Anybody ever hear of this? In-law? Oh, okay. Yeah, we got one of these at University of Florida because they use it for grad students to make sure they're not cheating their hours. When I found it, I was like, hello? And they're like, oh, it's just for grad students. Well, okay. Can I have access to it for a couple days? So this is, this iGuard. And what this is a biometric fingerprint reader. It gives you, log in, log out. And you find these all over the place. Okay? That says FT, Fort something. Enough of that. I reported that to CERT. So, recommendations for the vendor. I love that. You can stop this. These guys got to conduct security evaluations. When somebody comes to them with a security vulnerability, they got to come back, right? I mean, you blow people off, and it pisses them off. And if we're not for CERT, I would have just dropped all this stuff on full disclosure and walked away and been done with it. But it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. It keeps me amped up a little bit, which is good. So they got to provide better deployment guides, and that goes along with their training. They got to tighten up that third party. So that's like the DVRs and the IP video cameras and all that. They can't say that you use these default passwords. You got to really tighten that up. Their logging sucks. And in the paper that I'm writing, which will come out in about 4 or 5 weeks, I'm going to really get into more details on that. But getting back to that Yale example of that young lady getting killed, nobody's going to debate that the logs aren't important on these, especially if that system goes down, right? And the nodes can't communicate back to the logs, so you don't know what's going on. Better HTTP daemon. If you're going to pitch this thing as you can manage it from anywhere, then that's the problem. You're really exposing yourself. FTP, basic stuff, right? Nothing too sexy here. So these customers, these are you guys, right? I mean, you gotta demand it. You gotta know about it, which is one. You gotta know about the issues, which is one of the reasons that I'm doing this and I'm speaking up and publishing these vulnerabilities. And it's just like any other IT system. So you need to make that case to your facilities management people and your management that, hey, we're putting these systems in, they're just like any other box. It's a Linux box. And we need to watch it, we need to protect it. We need to do VLANs and MAC authentication, VPNs, and restrict the IPs that can admin it. We need to do all that due diligence, best practices stuff. So that's about it. Just really want to say a special thanks to the CarolinaCon organizers. I'm kind of I've never been to this conference before. I'm really pleased with what I've seen, except for a couple of people. The communications were great. And I'm real excited to be here. And I hope that you got something out of this. Please bear in mind that this is a teaser, precursor to what's coming up. This paper is going to be, good. And I'm going to release it after Hack in the Box Dubai. Talk about a flight. Oh my God, I don't know what I was thinking. But I just want to go over there. I want to try to see this world when I can. Final thing I'll say is just, the security community. I mean, met some great people in this community. Really, for all the bad shit that we allegedly do, there's a lot of big hearts and a lot of care about society and about ethics, about patriotism and what we want to go with this country. A lot of good stuff. A lot of bad stuff too. That's what comes with it. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to be around, so I mean, if you spot me, you want to get a little one-on-one time, that's great. And yeah, that's it.